What I would like to say first is thank you for having me here, first of all, because a lot of these things that people are saying, we can't predict the future, we don't know. Well, actually, we do know, and we know because I'm a political scientist, and I like to think that I actually have a purpose, and it is to predict these things and to know what's going to happen. The problem is what we've been talking about here, the two-party system, they haven't done anything. The reason that nobody knows is because we're stuck in this little box, this comfort zone of not going outside of the two-party system. What we do know is we know that neither of these two parties are going to do anything at all, because they've had their chances. I know personally I've been involved in these campaigns on both parties before I became a libertarian with people who gave us the promises just like I would like to do right here, just like we all are giving to each other here, as honest and sincere as that. And when they get into the position and have a little power and have some money thrown in their face, the parties, and after being involved in this for so long, I realized it's not the individual people, it is the parties. The parties are getting paid by these lobbyists, by these people that want to influence, and the parties control the candidates. There's been some good candidates in these two parties that have been up for election and actually winning the popular vote and having the parties come in and change rules to make sure the people don't know about them. And that's why it's so amazing. I mean, that's why I have 100% faith in this Florida Cannabis Coalition, because I go around as the spokesperson for the Libertarian Party. And before I tell you about the Libertarian Party, I'm going to step back, because we do have a little extra time here at this event, and tell you about what, I mean, you know, we sat here in the room and it sounds like, you know, I'm the enemy, like the politicians are bad, politicians are bad. And that's true. That's what I saw when I was working in politics in Tallahassee for 15 years. It's why I got out of it and started working for the criminal defense attorneys, because I realized that was the right side of the law. I thought we couldn't win it, we couldn't fight it. And I had some life events happen. I was always fighting for cannabis freedom, always. That was the main thing that drove me as an individual, because I saw it. So cannabis does not discriminate, and illness does not discriminate. People get sick regardless of a lot of things. There's infectious diseases out there that don't care your socioeconomic status, your race, your education. They will affect you. And when there's a medicine out there, and when the healthcare industry is out of control with spending and people don't make enough money to pay for their own care, and there's something in the ground that grows by itself that will cure you and relieve you from your ailments, I mean, we do have an instinctual, like, survival instinct, I'd like to believe, and, you know, we're gonna do what we need to do, like this Jenks case that they were talking about, you know, of course they kept growing it, that's what was keeping them alive. And when I first started this journey, which is why I need to tell you this before, because I know the way Libertarian Party chairman, it sounds like the enemy, and it sounds almost dirty, me up here using that title, and I feel dirty because I did use that title to get on the stage today, and that's a testament to the party, because I am a cannabis activist first, before I was ever chairman. I've only had that title for a year. I've only been associated with a political party for a year. I mean, I got associated with it exactly the right amount of time before I could be elected chairman of the party, because I knew no one was going to step up to do the job, and I would be forced to by the people I surrounded myself with, which has been both amazing and horrible at the same time. But it's needed, and somebody needs to do these things. And while I can't tell you why I was born with this innate feeling that I need to speak out, I've always done it my whole life, and I've gotten in trouble for it my whole life, and it's become my calling, I guess, to fall on the sword. So I can sit up here today and tell everybody out loud that I use cannabis. I tell everybody about it. I speak out in the places where other people don't want to do it, and I don't care. I mean, I know it's what's right, and I will always do what's right regardless of the intimidations from anybody. I mean, it's just the way I'm built, and thankfully other people in this room. And I mean, I've tried, with this title of Libertarian Party, I actually realized it's gotten me out of events more than it's gotten me into events, because nobody wants to touch on the politics of this. Whenever they mention politics, everyone says, I don't want to say anything, I don't want to align myself with anything, because it is true, it's seen as the enemy, and you don't want to be aligned. This was another out of my comfort zone position I decided to take, was when this party came to me and said, we want to elect you to the chairman, and I said, well, let me just tell you, all I care about is cannabis. That's really my main issue, let me really look at this platform and see if it's something I can stand behind, because I don't know, you guys seem a little crazy. That's what I thought, you know? I mean, I agreed with the third party notion, but, you know, everyone that was coming out and talking to me about it, them always seemed like, you're never going to have a chance, because it's like we learned, there's a lot of marketing that's involved to it. We need people that look professional, that look like a politician, but have good intentions, and those are few and far between. We look for them every day. We find a lot of them. We have 2 of them. Someone asked about governors. We have a governor candidate, Adrian Wiley, and an attorney general candidate, Bill Wilsifer. And how important are those positions going to be? Extremely important. The people, if we don't, we have an attorney general in office right now that has said to, in public, in a statement, I will do whatever I can to make sure cannabis is not legalized for medicinal use. So, you know, Prop 2 is great, and this is the way our government's supposed to work. People are behind it. And that's why I have to give props to the Libertarian Party, and why I decided to join them after I looked at their platform and realized, you know, I mean, we'll get into this party. Let me tell you, before I talk as a politician, I want to talk as the cannabis activist and where I come from in my background, how I got here. But I also grew up in Broward County, Florida. I was an athlete there. I got a full scholarship to swim at Florida State. I went there. Like I said, I was always kind of a rebel and all this stuff. And I got up to Tallahassee, and I talked to the cop. You know, I talked back to questioned the police. And Tallahassee's a town, it's the state capital. They like to make examples of people there. I was very quickly turned into a target in that town, and I was followed, and I was pulled over many times for very minor things, and arrested on minor traffic infractions is all they could ever get me on. It happened, but see, if you get three misdemeanors of the same charge, the next one turns into a felony no matter what, here in Florida. So that happened to me. I got a felony charge in Tallahassee. I decided I should go work at a criminal defense attorney's firm, because I started doing research and realizing, just from being in the courtroom, that even if you know what you're talking about, the whole marketing thing comes into play, and if you don't have that attorney standing there in front of you or by your side, you don't have a chance. You have to get someone there. That's just the way it is for now. And of course, if we could get all the attorneys to be good attorneys, you know, if we can get the system changed from the core, which is why politics are so important, and it's unfortunate that it's seen as bad, though, because we did control this government. We are electing these people we're letting people do it because we're staying submissive, and we're not standing up and shouting out from the rooftops what's right to do, because we're afraid, and we have a good reason to be afraid. And you know, I don't know what I'm missing in me that made me a little not afraid, but it hasn't been an easy road. I'll tell you that. It's not. I didn't get here. It's been hard, and I've volunteered. I was sentenced to probation for these minor traffic offenses that turned into a felony, and I was doing it, and I was in a car accident in 2008 that has resulted in some surgeries, and I couldn't do their sheriff jail camp days that I had to do, where I had to go check in as an inmate at least once a week. Every 7 days you had to go, or you would get arrested. You would violate your probation. I was sentenced to 24 of them. When I said I couldn't do that anymore, they changed it to community service, 550 hours, in addition to the 12 days I already did. And I really couldn't do that. I was laid up in bed. So I said, you know, I already had been on probation for about 8 years, misdemeanor probation. I mean, once they get a hold of you, they don't let you go, because then they can really intimidate you. And they did. I didn't have a choice. Whenever they had me as under their supervision, I had people knocking on my doors asking me for urine in a cup all the time. And I didn't use cannabis. I was scared out of using it in the beginning, because I just got arrested for a felony. I'm on this felony probation. I had to go through this whole scary process where they made me feel like a real criminal, DNA and all this stuff. And it was very degrading, and they strip you down to where you feel demoralized and you feel like this wasn't worth it. But it is worth it, because that's over now. And I ended up putting a motion into the court. I realized I was never going to get off this probation, and while I was working at the law firm, I realized that. And I saw how when people got close to their sentence's end, the police really cracked down on them and almost looked for reasons to make sure they stayed in the system, so they had this control. And I had just met, my husband and I, we were in the same group of friends, but we didn't date each other. We dated other people and stuff, and we finally ended up starting to date each other. And I had a chocolate lab that was like my child at the time, and I was like, that's it. Now I have someone to watch my dog. I'm going to put a motion into the court and say, please revoke my probation, or let's change the terms of my probation, and I want to withdraw my community service hours and be sentenced to jail time, please. And the motion got brought up in the court, and the judge was like, I'm confused. You're here wanting me to sentence you to jail instead of probation? You want to change your probation thing? And I had some attorney that I just kind of found. I mean, I worked in the town, so I was like, who wants to come to me that day to court? And I said, yes, please, I want to do jail. And I said, I want the same terms of this probation agreement, but I want to take off community service and give me jail time. And he said, okay, then 10 days in the county jail, you got to go tomorrow. And he's like, are you really sure you want to do this? And I said, absolutely. And at this time, I had worked for these criminal defense attorneys. I had been to that jail to talk to our clients so many times, and I realized everyone in there was just like I was. Of course, they looked like a criminal because they're all wearing these blue coveralls and have no makeup or hair. They're all sitting there looking like you look when you're in jail, like a criminal. But when you started talking to them, you realized no one that was violent that was in there. They were all in there because the police were trying to make examples out of everybody in there, almost, for the most part. And I wasn't afraid to go anymore, so I said, please do that. And I went in there, and luckily the terms of the probation said, as soon as I finish what's in this contract, I'm released from supervision. So unlike a lot of people, when they get out of jail, they're going to be on a probation or parole. I was out, my sentence was completed, and I was free. And I've been free from the police involvement since then. And I'd really have to say, though, that it's because the Libertarian Party took me in that I haven't been brought back. I mean, the cops still pull me over all the time. And let me tell you what I do. I have my phone, and right after I became chairman of the party, I put this sticker on the back of my phone. And I always advocate for recording government officials doing their job, because that's our right, and we should do it. It's the only way we can hold them accountable. And this governor, our candidates for governor and attorney general, want to put a live feed in their office and their cabinet, not only just so everybody can see what they're doing, but because it keeps all of us accountable. It keeps those of us working in politics that want to stay honest, it keeps us accountable, because it's very hard to be in this business and not take the bait, if you will. I mean, right now I'm doing this for free. The Libertarian Party of Florida is 100% volunteer, and that's because that's the only way we know we can trust everybody. Nobody's making anything else off of this. We're all not doing it for our names. We're doing it for nothing. And about a week after I got this position, my husband lost his job, and it meant, and I had a daughter. She's now 3, and I've been doing this for a year, so she was 2. So I was a stay-at-home mom. He made enough money for me to stay home. I thought I could do this. We'd be fine. And here we are now. We have no income in our house, and I'm working for a political party that is opposed to all government intervention in your life. I mean, we want it as local as possible. We are for private industries. We're for, we want government. We wanted a local government. We don't want federal government overreaching. And what were we going to do? We had to support our family. And what we did was we spent all of our savings, and I ended up actually getting very, very sick with Lyme disease. That's what brought us down here. I was bit by a tick when my daughter was 2, and that was a whole nother journey of how they discriminate, how the government tries to keep us sick and not get us well. I don't know, there's some conspiracy going on with Lyme that I don't have time to go down that rabbit hole. I'm already too deep into cannabis. But I did know, even being an advocate for cannabis this whole time, I was an advocate for cannabis freedom, is what we always call it. We just want the plant to be free. If people want to grow it, let them. The earth has given it to us. There's no process anyone needs to do to use it. If it's the earth, I mean, are you going to arrest the earth? It's here. Let us use the substance that's been given. So I've been for it for everyone to use it however they please, every adult. And I got sick, and I still didn't run to cannabis right away. I got sick, I didn't know what was wrong with me, and I still used cannabis, but I didn't want to smoke anything because I was ill. And right away you don't want to intoxicate yourself. You're trying to get well, and for some reason it's still, even though I was such a passionate advocate, the first thing I thought of wasn't like get cannabis. It was like go find a doctor, get some. They put me on IV antibiotics. I mean, Lyme is a seriously horrible illness, and they want to say it doesn't exist here in Florida, which is a huge lie. I couldn't find a doctor to treat me. Luckily, when I first was diagnosed, my husband was employed, and we had a savings, and we had to spend a lot of our savings to find doctors that would treat me as a Lyme patient. We had to move down here because of it. He left his job in Tallahassee, and we came down here ultimately so I could get the treatment from a regular mainstream doctor who obviously isn't afraid to stand up to people either. And I had always told my doctors I used cannabis ever since I was an activist. Whenever they say on your forms, what medicines are you taking, I would write down whatever medicines I was taking, and I would write cannabis. And then it would say how many milligrams and how often, and I would say as much as I can, as often as possible. And I mean, it just got to the point, I didn't start off saying it that blatantly, but I started just easing it in, and when I realized after about 6 years that no doctor I had been to had ever said stop, or had ever said, they would, I would always be waiting for the reaction. It was always interesting, and I would just go to different doctors sometimes to see what they would say. I was realizing that there was a confidentiality there, that the doctors weren't breaking. Now there isn't, because now if you want to get certain drugs here in the state, because of the laws that they've passed, you have to waive your Fourth Amendment rights, and your medical records are exposed all through the law enforcement. You have to sign away that the DEA gets copies of all your prescriptions if you want certain medications. So it's different after the passage of some of those laws. And that's what they're trying to do with some of these marijuana laws. And they're going to keep doing it. These two parties are. I mean, as long as, I'll get back to that. Let me go back to my story. But I was sick with Lyme, and I mean, even thinking about it now, I mean, I was treating for 2 years off and on IV antibiotics, about 27 other pills a day to try to get me better. Some were for symptoms, a bunch of, like everyone's in here says, opiates, benzodiazepines, everything from, stimulants, everything. Anything that they could do to try to help me feel alive. And I had a baby at home. I was a stay-at-home mom with a baby and feeling like I was on my deathbed, and I was a cannabis advocate, and I didn't even think to try it myself because of this, the shadow that's over it, making you feel like it's something wrong. And finally, for my symptoms, I just got tired of feeling the way you feel on all those drugs, and I was like, I just need to get some of this oil. I heard about the oil, and there's a bunch of Lyme support groups, and people were talking about the oil and the Charlotte's Web and how it, it does all this stuff. And I was like, we got to just put the money out and get some. I got to try it. And my body was shutting down. I was on all this medicine, and I got it. 1 month of oil every day. I took they say I do like a rice grain amount once a day. I did a rice grain amount about 4 times a day. But it was, I got better. I mean, I'm here right now, and a year ago, I was laid up in bed with IVs in me and nurses coming to the house trying to care for my daughter and be the chairman of this party at the same time. And luckily, being involved in this kind of got me the information when I was incapable of finding it myself. So I think it was all, like you said, it's all serendipity, this whole thing. It really is. The timing is perfect. Prop 2 is going to pass. I believe it will if we can get people to the polls, because they're trying a lot of things now to make it seem like you don't need to go anymore. But it's not nearly going to be the end of the road. It's not going to legalize anything. It's going to basically send an invitation to the federal government saying, we just all decided we want to break your laws. Come on down here and arrest us, is basically what we're doing. And we need to know that that's what we're doing and be ready for it. We need to be ready, and that's why, I know, and do I have confidence that the people are going to get the message in time to vote for our candidates into office this term? That depends on you guys. That depends on if you are going to spread the message, and people want to know about lobbying. We have lobbyists. Our party has a fund on our website for cannabis lobbying, and we've been raising money. We've hired people. We wrote this bill, and I helped draft the bill. The first one I saw was not good at all. They were talking about a 158-page bill that needs to be written. Well, we already wrote it. All these laws that need to be written for when Prop 2 passes, we've already written them all, and it is 158 pages, and it is in detail, and it is good, and it helps patients. What would happen to that when it gets into committees? I know exactly what would happen to it. They would come in there, and they would add all these little clauses that make it less and less free and less accessible, and make it less and less compassionate with every sentence they say, because as long as those two parties are in there, that's what's going to happen. We're not going to replace all the state senators and representatives in one term, but we do have a governor and an attorney general candidate who have a lot of power over what's going to happen when these laws get voted in. And it's important that we support them and that we do support those lobbyists that are out there in the other two parties that do work with us, because there are, thankfully, lots of them out there. Not everybody's bad. I mean, I worked in politics as well with the two parties, and I wasn't bad. You realize that the system is bad, and it's hard to stay in it and stay true, but it does happen. So now I'm going to start this little presentation. Hopefully it doesn't, it makes me sound like less of a criminal, or less of like a politician criminal, and more of a criminal for the people. But this is just some of the things, little things that we put out about it. They're going a little too fast, but you might be a libertarian. These memes are all on our website that you can see anyways. I don't know if I'm going to be able to. We'll just go through these, I guess, fast, and I'm going to end up talking a lot anyways. After that one, hopefully it'll slow down. Okay. Well, all those little things that were just shown, you know, the common thread, oh, geez, just going. The common thread of all those things is what you just saw there, the 10th Amendment to the Constitution. That's the common thing in all the things that Libertarian Party wants. And it really is, cannabis is the one issue that can bring us all together. Because like I said, it doesn't discriminate. There's nothing that it's going to for one person. And the one thing that the Libertarian Party, it was easy to decide to go with this party because they pretty much said at the end of the day, the platform doesn't matter. We are a bottom-up organization, and we truly are, and they truly are. And the more local you are, the more rights you have over your space. I mean, you have rights over your person, your property. Everyone can agree there, and then it's like your community, your town, your city, your county, your state, and last is the federal government. And right now we've been doing it the other way around. The federal government does not have this. The United States. I heard something the other day that made a lot of sense. It was actually our candidate for governor who told it to me. He said, you know, in the beginning, looking back at all these documents, it wasn't the United States, it was these United States. We weren't the United States of America. It was these United States of America, because all of the states have the power. And that's what the 10th Amendment is. I'll skip ahead to, but the principle that the Libertarian Party said, the only thing you have to follow is, we don't believe in the initiation of force or the threat of force or fraud on anyone else's person or property. That's all. That's all you have to agree to. And I thought about it, and at first I was like, well, no, because sometimes you need to use force. But then I realized, but you don't ever need to initiate the force. And we believe the government's already initiated the force on us when it comes to this cannabis issue. We believe that force, we are okay with people needing to use force backed by civil disobedience and stuff like that. We don't believe you should follow bad laws. The way that you stop bad laws from being enforced is some people have to fall on the sword like I do. Some people, I mean, the juries can nullify laws. They don't want people to know this information. They don't want people to know the states have power and that the people control the government, because they would lose a lot of money. And here is what the 10th Amendment pretty much says. That the powers that are not delegated to the states through the Constitution, nor prohibited to the states, are reserved to the states, respectively, or to the people. And now that's what the amendment says, and that's what it means. Like, there's nothing in there that was written originally about cannabis. It actually says, I believe it's the 9th Amendment, that kind of gives the implication that you could be your own doctor if you wanted to. You don't need a license to practice medicine on yourself. If you could really determine the way that they are left broad like this for a reason. And that's why Amendment 2 is so great, because it is a constitutional amendment, and it's broad, and it's an amendment that's repealing a bad law. And it's broad enough that we don't know. People are asking timelines. Well, when can we do this? When can we do that? Well, we don't know yet, because that amendment is broad. What it does give us is, it says if it doesn't happen in 6 months, then there are no regulations on it, and we can basically have a free-for-all. They're not going to let that happen. But if they don't get something down in 6 months, everyone's free to do what they want. But we have to get something in the Constitution. We have to get it. The way to protect the people is doing it this way, through the ballot initiative, through getting it into the Constitution, and then the laws can be discussed, and they will be in Tallahassee. That's why we already have drafted this bill that we believe has the perfect language in it that's good for patients. Now, what's going to happen when that gets up there isn't going to be what we want. I can tell you that, because I can tell you that we don't have enough people up there supporting it the way it is, or people that just have to do what their party's saying if they want a career. And they're not willing to sacrifice their careers at this point on really, some people are a little bit, but at the end of the day, they think they need to compromise, even if, and I do too. We need to compromise. We need to be a little bit pragmatic about this and not say all or nothing right now. Any step is a good step, as long as, even if it does take away some rights in a bill, and we don't want to do that to the Constitution, but if they make something like the Charlotte's Web, which they've put a lot of things in there now that have changed it around from the original version, the one that's going to be voted on isn't the same as the original, but any step showing that we're open to it is a good thing. We need to make progress at this point. We're making a lot of progress, and it's great. But here's the thing about, the government intimidation, the ways that, basically it all comes down to the war on drugs. The war on drugs is really a war on cannabis when you look at the details. And a war on cannabis gives us a war on education, because they actually have laws prohibiting people to do research on cannabis. Why would they not want us to know what cannabis does? I know, because they're greedy, and they're gonna lose something that's important to them, which they're making. There's no reason for it. They should want people to be educated, because if we can't be educated, we can't be healthy. Right now they're putting poisons in our foods out there. They're telling farmers they can't grow their own food and eat it themselves, or they're going to take them to jail. This is insane. And we are allowed to put. If you can't even let us put our own food in our bodies, what are you trying to do? And then you look what's happening. People are getting sicker. Why are all these people getting sick? Maybe because the food isn't good. So all of this, we need to just be educated. That's really what it all comes down to. And it talked about the states' rights, and these are just some of the departments that, when I was jotting down this little outline, these are things you're all going to need to know, people you're going to need to know, and people that you're going to need to learn to work with as much as they're going to be trying to hinder you. Because while these people are the enemies, they also need to become our friends. And that's where the tricky role of politics comes in. We have to, and you need to know that cannabis, if you don't get involved in the political game, you need to, that's one of the cogs in this wheel that needs to be, you need to embrace it, or it's never going to happen. That's why I was so happy that this party has done this. And while I agree that any party other than those two would be a good option, after this party took me in and I've learned about it, it's way larger than any of the other ones put together. And we have money, and we have people that have been libertarians, or people that are in the other two parties that are not afraid to use the word libertarian from both sides now, that are bringing it and making it more mainstream as much as they try to stop it. But there's good people, just like there's good people in every industry. There are some good people, I like to believe, in all these industries. You just have to find them. And if they're not there, we need to be the people in there. Even if we think this industry should be abolished, well, then let's get into it, be a staffer, work for them, and then work to getting it abolished. Like Jason was saying, fighting this issue would close his business down, but he doesn't care, and he's doing it anyways, and that's what we need, people like that. These are the things we could do about it. Just what you were doing about it right here is activism. Coming out and going to events and meeting people is so important. We've stressed that. I know everyone else has stressed that, but it really is. It takes courage just to do that. Because I remember in my beginning days not wanting to associate with it because I didn't want to draw in police attention. And just coming to something like this can do that. And I don't know what it was that first triggered the police off to me, but something did. And I've never, by the way, I don't have any cannabis charges or arrests on my record ever. So how's that for them? They came to my door and gave me so many drug tests. Since I do have a pain management doctor that I see now here still because of the car accident, but that's because I'm trying to set myself up to make sure I'm a patient for cannabis. But they don't make it easy to be a patient at a pain management doctor anymore, and I don't like to take the medicine, and I tell them that. And I've told them why I was there, and that I really just want cannabis, and I'm working to get the laws passed, and I already have a doctor that's going to give it to me and knows I've been taking it. I want it on record that I've been using cannabis this whole time, and that I'm healthier. And and the doctors don't agree with it. They just say, okay, and they agree to treat me. And they give me drug tests, and I'm assuming I test positive for THC on all of them, and I don't test positive for opiates because I don't take them. So and last time I was there, they actually said to me, you know, we're gonna have to keep giving you drug tests if you don't test positive for opiates that we're giving you. And I said, okay, and then keep giving them to me. And last time I was there, last month, they said, you're gonna have to test positive for them next month, or we're gonna have to discharge you. So I said, okay, that's fine. I'll take one before I get in my car and drive over here across town. That sounds like a good idea. No, that's with my 3-year-old in the car. Like I was like, I go, well, if I wait to take it when I get to the waiting room, will it still show up in my body? And they were like, we can't tell you. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'll have to look that up. But you know, you gotta stay educated. It's so important. You need to when you get educated, spread that. We as a party want to influence the legislation. That's why we've gone out there and written it. We try to get these people elected a lot locally because we believe it is bottom up. We need to start small. Like we've mentioned, these cities and the counties are going to come out with laws and ordinances. We want those people on our side. And if they're not on our side, we are going to replace them and put our people in because they're not going to be on our side. We already know that, or we would have done something about it already. So we have we are very organized and very structured, and we have people waiting to fill these roles. Not in every county, not in every place, but in a lot of them. And they just don't have the money to be known or put these commercials out that annoy you so much that you can't stand it anymore. But they work brainwashing-wise because you get there and that's who you've heard of and you just pick the lesser of the two evils. And don't, because they're both bad. And as long as we keep picking evil, we're not going to have good. We need, you know, even if we can get some of us like libertarians in there right now, like in the beginning, whenever people were doing this for real reasons, for freedom in general. You know, we haven't had a Thomas Jefferson's and George Washington's in a long time, because when you do that kind of movement, I mean, none of those people wanted to be involved in government either. They had to, and you know, it's going to be the same thing. Will the Libertarian Party one day be corrupt? I don't see how it can't. I feel like that happens to parties when they stay involved in the system. The parties need to change just like the officers need to change. It needs to stay local. It needs to stay true. And then, you know, we actually advocate for civil disobedience in this party. You know, if you don't believe the law is just, we don't believe you should follow it because that's the way to do it. I mean, you follow the law. Don't cause harm on anybody else. That's still the one principle that we follow. But understand, you know, just know the law, because know what you're willing, draw your line, and then when someone crosses it, you know, push them back, basically. Don't let them come into your space, which is pretty clear with the Constitution and your personal property and your person. Let me try to speed through some of these last ones. There we go. These were the candidates that I've talked about, and I have, if you go to our website, lpf.org, and on Twitter, we use the hashtag #VoteLPF if you want to. Here's Adrian. Oh, okay, here we go. This is our gubernatorial candidate, Adrian Wiley, and this is one of the marketing tools and this is what we've had. You know, the Libertarian Party has a group of people that have gotten together too that are from all these other industries, and we can make ourselves look like a real party now, and we're getting a lot more attention, not just locally, but around the country, and especially here locally, I should say, because like this is a hotbed for liberty, thank goodness, and so we're in a good place, we're in a good community. But this is how you can locate him. His Twitter is @Wiley for Gov, and hashtag Wiley for Gov if you want to find out news on what's going on with him or where he's going to be. I'll actually be speaking with both these candidates in Miami on Tuesday. The Attorney General candidate is Bill Wolsifer, and he was the main author on that Kathy Jordan Act, and he was kind enough to let me send me a copy and let me tear it to shreds after he spent what I imagine to be a year working on it. And he did a great job. I mean, I tore it to shreds, but because I think we need to scrutinize our laws. This is a little thing for whoever was asking earlier about what the government, you know, what these positions can do. Bill is an attorney and known for making things very, very, very wordy and very legal sounding, but it's good that he knows how to do that. But, you know, this is the Charlotte's Web bill, he actually had a hand in as well, and it was actually introduced to be an agricultural hemp bill. Then the Republican Party of Florida saw a way to make it look like they were compassionate for patients and added in there, decided they wanted to call it the Charlotte's Web bill and say, well, if you're advocating for this low strain of hemp, that's basically what Charlotte's Web, you can make a CBD from that, so we're going to act like we want to help patients. But that bill wouldn't help it wouldn't have helped me. It won't help 99% of the people that need cannabis. And now, I mean, they've lowered the amount of THC in there. They've lowered the thresholds that were even in that to begin with. And we need Amendment 2 to pass, and we need to get some good regulations written by good people. Like, we need an attorney general in there that will enforce them whenever they are written, the good regulations. Let me see. Then we go to, here's the ones we've talked about, so we can just pass through these. Those are all in the book as well. And the coming out of the cannabis closet was something I did when, even before I was sick, when I was encouraging people, we were encouraging people to tell their doctors and kind of come out of their closet. We were realizing there was a trend in society that cannabis legalization follows same-sex marriage legalization in a lot of times. So we kind of coupled those together, where people that are more tolerant in general will be more tolerant of this. So we started the campaign a couple years. It's kind of faded now. We all kind of blended into other things, but I still advocate for that. And I think that telling people that you use cannabis is the first step of becoming a civil disobedient type person. Stay informed, do all these things that we were talking about. Please go to lpf.org. You can join for free. We take members of all parties into the membership of this. You don't have to change your registration right away. We just ask that you come to our page and join our membership letter, so you get a monthly newsletter telling you what's going on. It's once a month. I don't think it's too annoying to get a letter updating you and educating you on things. And once again, we do have a button on there to donate for cannabis lobbying, which we would appreciate very much, because we all are volunteers. Get involved in coalitions like this. I mean, being here today, Normal, like that was named United for Care, which also, I will say, also has invited, they're going to be at our LPF convention, which is coming up at the, it's going to be here in Tampa, no surprise, because this is a very good place for liberty, May 16th through 18th, and you can go to www.lpf2014.org to find out information on our convention. And United for Care will be there as well. And Florida Action Cannabis Network is also a pretty great one to be involved with. Kathy Jordan, the person that bill was named after, is very heavily involved with them. I think she's the president now. And I think there's one more, but I can't. Well, that was some, we already kind of covered all that. I guess that's why we really need all of you guys to come on board, because the more of us there are, the less likely they will be to come in here and do something to us. I've seen it with this locally. I know the same thing will happen if the federal government tries to come into a state run by libertarian politicians. So if you have any other questions, you can email me. Please do. I'm going to have some business cards. I'll be out there too, but my email is chair@lpf.org. You can ask me any questions you want, and I will get back to you. I'll answer them, or